Understanding your character's wants and needs. What are they? And how can they help you become the greatest writer you can be? We're going to be answering those questions and more, and we're starting right now. As a writer, when you sit down to write a novel, you want to ask yourself, what are my character's wants and needs? And it doesn't just apply to the protagonist. The secret is knowing how it applies to both your good guy and the bad guy. The protagonist and the antagonist both have wants and needs. But what does this mean? What is wants and needs? When the story begins, both characters want something. There's something in their life that's missing. They don't feel happy. They feel as though if they can acquire something, like a material object, be it money, fame, a car, a house, they feel as though if they acquire their want, then they will achieve tremendous happiness. But in fact, it is their need on a subconscious emotional level. That is what they're truly after. Something is missing inside of them emotionally. And that is what's causing them their pain. And they go on a journey. Something happens that disrupts their life. They have to now seek and go out on a journey in which they both, good guy and bad guy, will face obstacles along the way. But the protagonist is the one who faces and stands up to those problems. And even if they succeed or fail, they learn something. And after they face a series of trials, they now have to confront themselves. They have to look within to either go for their want or go for their need. Now, the protagonist is going to initially want their want, and they're going to have an opportunity to take it, but they choose not to, because through all of their trials that they have faced, they realized that their want is not important. It is their need, their emotional inner need. The antagonist, because they didn't face their trials, they just simply go for their want. They ignore their need. And this leads to their downfall. This is their problem. Whereas the protagonist realizes that their inner need is more important than their want. They might choose family over money. They might choose inner happiness over fame. But what they go for is something more deeper. The antagonist goes for something simple, their want, and they end up failing because of it. As a writer, you want to start off by giving both antagonist and protagonist a want that is something external, like money, gold, power, fame. But the reader, on a subtext level, has to be able to sense that there is something emotionally missing in both characters. The character may or may not know it, but the reader should be able to sense what this character is missing internally and how their external need is unnecessary. But as the protagonist faces their trials, they then discover what is truly missing in their life. So in the end, when they do have a choice between the two, they go for their need and not their want. But as a writer, it is important that you give your protagonist the opportunity to have both, because you don't want to take away their want and they have to settle for their need. That doesn't create for a powerful story. You want to create a story where the protagonist can in fact choose their want. They have it, it's right there. But they in fact choose their need. When you look at a movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark, both Indy and Belloc were almost identical in who they were. And that's another secret that you want to apply to your novel. Have the protagonist and antagonist almost like the same person, as though if they both grew up in different lives, they would have been the other person. The good guy would have been bad, or the bad guy could have been good. The more similar you make your protagonist and antagonist, the better the story. Because we feel as though they are a mirror opposite of each other, but they could in fact be the same person. But in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones had the Ark. He could have taken it, but he chose to look away. Whereas Belloc, he went for his want, and it cost him his life. Indiana Jones turned away from his want and embraced his need that allowed him to walk away safe. We see the same thing happen in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Both Indy and the antagonist both want the Holy Grail, and they find it. The antagonist reaches for it, and she doesn't, all she's focusing is on her want, not her need, because she doesn't care about what her need is. She focuses on her want, and she keeps reaching for the Grail, and she falls to her death. Indiana Jones almost was reaching for the cup, and he too would have fallen to his death if he tried to keep reaching for it. But at the very last moment, he realized what was more important: family, his father, and he literally lets go of his want, saving his life. But in the process, he saved his life by embracing family. And when you watch The Last Crusade, you think it's a great movie because of the action. But in fact, what made it great was we, as the audience, we understood that this was a character who was faced with want and need. And he had the want, it was right there, but he let it go to embrace his need. And we feel and we learn from it. Because that's what novel writing is all about. We as people face problems in our lives, and we want answers. And we read novels to see how other people solve their problems and how we can learn from it. How can someone in a novel embrace their need over their want? And how can we as readers learn from it so we can apply it to our lives? That is what causes us to read. That's what makes us want to read a novel. Because in the end, it's all about choice. The character has to have choice. You can't take away one and they have to settle for the other. Both the protagonist and antagonist, when they meet each other in the end, almost like they're looking into a mirror, because that's what great novel writing is, they both have an opportunity to embrace their want. But the protagonist sees the bigger picture. They see what's important, what they have learned along the way, and they embrace their need. Whereas the antagonist embraces their want, and that leads to their downfall. It's all about choice, but it's not random choice. It's about what you learn along the struggle in the second act, because the first act is the introduction of character, the introduction of problems, what's lacking in their lives, what the protagonist and antagonist feel is necessary that they need to acquire to be happy. But the second act is them on their journey, facing trials along the way. And regardless of whether or not they succeed or fail, they learn. And it's through that learning in the second act that leads us to the third, when it finally comes down to choice, want or need. And because the protagonist faced his fears and stood up to the obstacles, he learned, therefore giving the protagonist the chance to choose, and they choose their need over their want. The antagonist did not face their fears, did not face their challenges, and because of it, they learn nothing along the way. So they end up going for their want, leading to their downfall. And this is what ends up separating the protagonist and antagonist into two separate people. Because in the beginning, they were almost one. They could have been one at the end if both had gone for their want. But because one of them chose their need and the other one chose their want, they ended up separating into being two separate people. A good example of this is Star Wars. Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker are in fact related. And however, Darth Vader went to the dark side, and Luke chose the light. He chose good. Luke had the opportunity to go to the dark side, but because what he learned along the way from Yoda and his trials, He chose the better way, the light side. He did not go the dark side, because Darth Vader did not face trials along the way of his life that would have made him choose the right path. He did not face his obstacles, therefore he chose his want. Luke chose his need. And that is in fact what separates them as two separate people in the end. Because in the end, every novel you read is all about one thing: soul searching. You're looking for yourself within yourself through a novel. And you want to learn how to become a better person. And we do this by watching other characters in a novel face trials, and in the end, choosing their need over their want, and how you can learn from it, and it can benefit your life. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website. I'll leave a link down below where you can visit my site right now, and you can read all of the countless blogs that I have that will help you become the greatest writer you can be, because I want to help you get published. I want to help you get your book into a bookstore as fast as possible. And if there's anything I can do to make that happen, I want to see that happen. In fact, I want you to watch another video that I have right now. I'm going to post a link for it right here, on who is the most boringest character in your novel. You will be surprised by who it is and how you can fix it to help you write the greatest novel you can.